If Brandon Nimmo leaves the New York Mets in free agency, could Michael Conforto be the perfect replacement? Could we see the return of Conforto in a Mets uniform? That is what we're discussing on this edition of Locked On Mets.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor, and where I also just wrote a free agent profile on Michael Conforto over the weekend. And look, we know Michael Conforto well, and there's two schools of thought on Michael Conforto as a fan base. This is from what I've gathered on social media and on your YouTube comments and others. There's the Mets fans who are been there, done that, getting the hell out of here. We don't want to see that again. And there's the Mets fans that, watched this guy's career as he came up in 2015 and thought about the promise of what Conforto could be. A guy that, if he spent 5 more years in a Mets uniform, would be pretty high up there on all of the all-time, rankings on doubles, home runs, RBIs, all these things, and would love to see him back. I think that there really is a straight split. I don't think there is that fan that has no opinion on Conforto returning, but it's an interesting discussion, and we're going to dive into the Nimmo element of this in the next segment, but I just want to go back to who he was throughout his career, because I think we've lost at times an understanding of the type of player that Michael Conforto was on the New York Mets and the type of, effect that he had. And I mean, simply put, you look at 2015 through 2021, he was the best player on the New York Mets. That's the only way you can quantify it. By far the most home runs. Pete Alonso, obviously, in far less time, got close, but the only two over 100 home runs from 2015 through 2021. I mean, leads every single category you can imagine. Runs scored, RBIs, plate appearances, games played. You look at the WRC plus, which is obviously a stat that is not season specific, right? This is a cumulative stat, a career WRC plus over this span. It kind of averages out. For Conforto at 124, I mean, a solid player for a really long time. The guys that were better than him on the Mets when it comes to weighted runs created plus during that era of Mets baseball, it's Pete Alonso at 136. It's Yoenis Cespedes at 135. It's obviously in limited games. Nimmo at 134, so that's where this conversation will get interesting in the next segment. Jeff McNeil at 126, Lucas Duda at 125, and then you get to Conforto. But then we go to wins above replacement. You're combining the offense and the defense, and from 2015 through 2021, you have 4 guys who accumulated F4 over 10. The bottom of that list is Curtis Granderson. Then you have Jeff McNeil, so that's 10.2, 10.3. Then you have Nimmo at 12.5, and you have Michael Conforto at 19.3. But diving a little bit deeper into season by season, if you remember, 2015 comes up. Guy was amazing. I mean, it was Conforto that first was that turning tide in the first half Mets to the second half Mets that ended up going on that run to make it to the World Series. Then you had the Yoenis Cespedes trade. For Conforto in 56 games played, he had 9 home runs, 30 runs scored, 26 RBIs, only struck out at a 20.1% clip as a rookie, hit 270, 335 on base, 506 slugging, a 133 WRC plus. He added 3 home runs in across his playoff action. Didn't have a great postseason overall, but did have enough slug that you appreciated what he produced. And then 2016, he falls off a cliff. Really had a bad sophomore season. WRC plus ended up being just slightly below average at 97, which is in, again, the worst year of his career. 220 average, 310 on base, only 12 home runs in 109 games. Bounces back in 2017. He's an all-star, 27 homers, 68 RBIs in 109 games played, 279 hitter, 384 on base, 555 slugging, 147 WRC plus, a 4.8 F4. Best season of his career, but he remained consistent from 2017 through 2019. You saw the walk rate at 13% every single season. The strikeout rate hovered between 25 and 23%. The average between 270, 80 to 245. So a little bit dropped there, but he kept the on-base percentage over 350 every single year. WRC plus again 147 in 2017, 119 in 2018, 127 in 2019. Hit 27 homers, 28 homers, and then 33 homers, and was healthy 2018 all the way through 2020. Did deal with injuries in 2021. The 2020 season, obviously an aberration, but the guy was hit a 322 hitter, 412 on base, 515 slugging, 158 WRC plus, accumulated a 2 F4 in just the 54 games he played. I mean, he was amazing, and you thought that he was going to be the top outfielder on the market or one of them. Then he has the 2021 season, which was a disaster for him. 232 average, 334 on base, only 384 slugging, 14 home runs, 125 games played. But even in what was, the second worst season of his career, 106 WRC plus, an above average hitter. That's the same mark that Eduardo Escobar put up this season. That's not to say that Conforto would be signed to be that type of an offensive player. You'd hope he'd be better than Escobar was this past season. But that is to say, for a guy that might not make more than $10 million after missing all of the 2022 season with a shoulder injury, who is at an all-time low right now, this is a chance to buy low on a guy that has immense upside, because we're not that far removed from a 30 home run season in 2019 and a year in 2020 where he was swinging the bat great, albeit over a short sample. One last thing to look at here when it comes to Michael Conforto before we dive into the Brandon Nimmo comparison and why this could make sense as far as a fit on the 2023 roster. And I know we've discussed this before, but this is the episode to really dive deep on this. You look at Michael Conforto from 2015 through 2020. Now, this is excluding his 2021 campaign where it was bad. You know what? Maybe that's not fair to do, so I'll actually give you the stats, including 2021 in a second. But in that period from 2015 through 2020, he was ninth in all of baseball among outfielders in F4 at 17.9. He was a top 10 outfielder in baseball, a 259 hitter, 358 on base, 484 slugging, a 128 WRC plus, which was ranked, 15th. You go to the home runs for Conforto, and that's a little bit further down the list, but he's still in the top 25 at 23rd. Now, you add in the additional year. If we add 2021 into the mix here, you look at the stats, he is, suddenly just outside of the top 10 at 13th best when it comes to F4. But again, even a top 15 outfielder in baseball across a 7-year Mets career, that's really impressive, and I think that's a guy the Mets should consider bringing back, again, considering the acquisition cost. That's the biggest thing here. I'm not saying Michael Conforto is going to be better than Brandon Nimmo next season, but what I am saying is Nimmo going to be $15 million better? That's the question we have to discuss, and when we will in just a minute. But first, I don't know about you, but I hate wearing dress shirts. They're often uncomfortable and the material feels bad in your skin, or it can feel super tight and just be impossible to find exactly the right size. The dress shirt was due for a radical reinvention, and that is where Rhone stepped up to the challenge. Rhone's commuter shirt is the most comfortable shirt. It's breathable, it's flexible. Nothing is better. They have their 4-way stretch fabric that provides breathability and flexibility, leaves you free to enjoy what life throws your way, from your commute to work to your 18 holes of golf. It's time to feel confident with the wrinkle-free shirt without the hassle. With Rhone's wrinkle release technology, wrinkles disappear as you stretch and wear the shirt. It's that easy. And with Gold Fusion anti-odor technology, you'll be smelling fresh and clean all day long. On top of that, Rhone is 100% machine washable, so you can spare that trip to the dry cleaner. The commuter shirt can get you through any workday and straight into whatever comes next. Head to Rhone.com/lockedon. Use the promo code LOCKEDON to save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your entire order when you head to Rhone, RHONE.com/lockedon. Use the code LOCKEDON. It's time to find your corner office comfort with Rhone. So the New York Mets signed Michael Conforto back to replace Brandon Nimmo. It's an interesting conversation, and ultimately, do I think Brandon Nimmo is a better player than Michael Conforto at this stage of their careers? Yes. But also I think that I would not be stunned if Conforto turned in a better season in 2022 either. I mean, these are two guys who were both first-round picks, and for a larger point of their careers, you would have said that Michael Conforto was the better player. The reality is, Nimmo has been an overachiever based on what we thought he was going to be, and now you look at the production they've gotten from Nimmo, the at-bats that they get, you look at the weighted runs created plus, you look at the defense he brings in center field, no doubt who's better. But at the same token, across a 7-year span where they were, both angling to make it to the big leagues, obviously Conforto did first. He played 300 extra games than Brandon Nimmo did. Now, he just missed an entire season with a shoulder injury. We have no idea how he's going to return. But if you're talking about who's the safer bet, Michael Conforto on a 1-year, let's say it's a $12 million contract or a $10 million contract with $5 million in incentives. Even if it's a 3-year deal with an opt-out after the first year with a low average annual value incentives, we're already at the bake in to bring him back, but bringing him back on your terms essentially. You compare that to maybe paying Nimmo $24 million a year, which is reportedly what his market value could be. And again, when I was previewing this last week, I had Nimmo at $144 million over 6 years, which is 24 a year. If you're telling me the difference in, let's just call it a $10 million difference, but also a 6-year commitment on Nimmo and a 1-year commitment on Conforto, the risk reward might skew in Conforto's favor, just based on the risk of signing a guy in Nimmo who, while he just proved to be healthy in this season, has a long track record of injuries with the guy coming in on a 1-year deal. Okay? The other difference, Brandon Nimmo throughout his career, as much as you can love him, which I do as a player. I mean, and what he's done defensively, the improvements, great. Career high home run 17. This year, got close to it at 16. He's never going to be that big-time power hitter. And if you're trying to find power in your lineup right now, Starling Marte, the most he might tap out on a season is being a 20-homer guy, maybe 25 if everything broke right, and I don't think that that's realistic. And Mark Canha, very similar type of player, where I think 15 is a more realistic ask, and I don't think you can expect more than 25 home runs from a Mark Canha. So you're not getting that power production from your outfield. Michael Conforto has 3 seasons where he's hit over 25 homers, 27, 28, and 33. That was his numbers from 2017 through 2019, respectively. He can be a 30 home run guy in your lineup. And if he is slated in as your 7 hitter, the pressure's not going to be on him to carry the lineup the way it has been in the past. They also just moved into Porch, so they are bringing in that Porch in right center field, where Conforto has some power. So that's even going to make it even more advantageous for him to play in Citi Field. I could see the fit there, and defensively, I like Conforto in right. Now, I love Starling Marte in right. I think Marte is a better right fielder, and I think the Mets defense would take a slight step back if you went from Nimmo in center, who proved to be above average, Marte in right, to Conforto in right and Marte in center, but it's more weighing out the other options. Again, I still like Brandon Nimmo. If you put it in a vacuum, you say, how are the Mets going to be the best team possible next season? It's bringing back Brandon Nimmo, but it's not that simple. It's about the allocation of resources. And, if you have to spend X, Y, and Z to retain Diaz and DeGrom, and that's going to cost you who knows how much, 60+ million, it might not be realistic to spend 24 on Nimmo, and you might not be able, if you do get Nimmo, to do anything else. Now, I have argued in the past that if they sign Nimmo, bring him back, you can trust the kids in Alvarez, Beatty, and Vientos to be that offensive upgrade off of what you had this year. And they could be fine with that any other additions. But if you do move on from Nimmo and you sign Conforto at a fraction of the cost, that's just more money that you can allocate to not only going out and maybe addressing your bullpen or your starting rotation, but also maybe getting that DH. Maybe suddenly you acquire a Jose Abreu, who we're going to discuss next, or maybe you bring Conforto along, and you also get a Jock Peterson. You really just increase your outfield depth with a couple of guys you take some flyers on, and you see if you can get some more juice in your lineup. I think that because Conforto brings a home run presence that is just absent from a lot of the roster right now. I mean, you could make the argument if they sign Michael Conforto, he would be, if not the second best home run threat to Pete Alonso, the third best behind Lindor and Alonso. And then if you really wanted to get crazy and project out Alvarez, maybe Alvarez is in that mix as well. I think he makes a lot of sense, again, under the context of a short-term deal at a low number. If Michael Conforto suddenly has this crazy healthy market that we're not expecting because the other outfielders out there are Judge, Nimmo, Benintendi, Mitch Haniger, Kevin Kiermaier, there's not really a big cream of the crop that you can really pick from this offseason. Maybe he enjoys a healthier market than I'm projecting, and it doesn't make sense. But if the market dries up on him and he's out there, and Nimmo has already walked, this is a signing I would see a little bit later on in the offseason. He could be the better of the evils there because I just, outside of Aaron Judge, we've discussed, outside of Judge and Nimmo, I just don't see a viable starting outfielder on the market. And I would prefer to spend on Conforto as that guy off of not playing and also off of a down year than paying Jock Peterson off his career year either. I know I just mentioned him, but if it's one or the other, I would vote for Conforto. But the other aspect of this is it could allow you to get a Jose Abreu. And so I just want to explore what that additional money can mean for the Mets. We're going to do that after a quick word from our sponsors. Jose Abreu as a potential DH for the New York Mets. When you look at his career numbers, the guy has been unbelievable. 292 career hitter, 354 on base, 133 WRC plus, 506 slug. He has 243 home runs dating back to 2014. And this past year, he still, while the home runs went down, only hit 15 in 157 games, hit 304, 378 on base, 446 slugging, 137 WRC plus. He walked at a 9.1% clip, struck out at 16.2% clip, scored 85 runs, drove in 75. Jose Abreu, still a really good hitter despite being 35 years old. He'll be 36 for next season. Could you spend the exact same amount of money that you were going to spend on Brandon Nimmo and acquire Michael Conforto and Jose Abreu? I think you could. What does that mean for your lineup construction? Well, it gives you a proven DH as opposed to what you have, which is Daniel Vogelbach as a platoon DH who's good against right-handed pitching, not good against lefties. And, what you have beyond that with Vientos, Beatty, Escobar, all these guys. Jose Abreu makes a lot of sense for the Mets on his own merit. But I just think that bringing him out now makes sense under the context of the money you save if you sign Conforto instead of Nimmo. I look at Michael Conforto and this offseason, and I just think he is a really good contingency plan. He's not my plan A. If I had a plan A and we're looking at all the options, everyone's plan A should be Aaron Judge this offseason if you're a contender that has money. If you're looking at the plan, if it's a 1A is Judge, a plan 1B is Nimmo, land one of those two guys, your offense is going to be great. I don't have any concerns about the Mets going into next season. But those two guys are expensive. If they sign elsewhere, and I'm scanning the market, and I'm trying to discuss what type of trades the Mets could make, and I'm throwing around the idea of Morcana playing center field, or Jeff McNeil going into right with Starling Marte in center, which we've discussed. And then what that would mean as far as spending money on an infielder, and which one of these infielders could you realistically sign? I just think that the best contingencies plan for Brandon Nimmo walking is Michael Conforto. And as a longtime fan that really did enjoy watching Conforto play baseball, thinks he's about the right things, thinks he is a guy that works really hard, that would be a good, positive influence in that locker room. I don't think he's an issue at all. A guy that has played in New York City and can maybe win the fans back a bit. I love the idea. I do. I like a narrative, and it's a narrative that I think is a good one. And I could see Conforto really outperforming expectations and having a monster season in the Mets uniform where, similar to how everyone sort of change their tune on a Jeff McNeil this year, or some of these other guys that you didn't expect much of, and then they really proved you wrong off of a down 2021. I think Conforto has the ability to flush 2021 as well. We saw just the impact that Eric Chavez had on McNeil. Why can't he have a similar impact on Michael Conforto, where you can get the best out of him? And when it comes to talent, no one should be questioning what Conforto brings to the table. But anyway, that's going to be all for today's edition of Locked On Mets. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Now, for your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today, hosted by Peter Bukowski. Locked On Sports Today is where you want to go to stay up to date with everything going on in the sports world. Breaking news, game reactions, so much more. You can find Locked On Sports Today on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get podcasts.